Are we crazy for doing this?
No more crazy than the other stuff we've been doing.
I hope this is the right place.
You don't think this is some sort of trap, do you? Like we're gonna go in here to a whole bunch of Empire guards?
No. She's trustworthy. I hope.
I heard that.
Do we want to know or not?
Yeah. His mom's not really around anymore. And we don't really know anyone else that knows. But I think it's important that we learn about it.
Okay.
This inn has been in my family for 4 generations. When it first opened, it was one of the most upscale places in the city. Everyone stayed here. Actors, politicians, famous authors. It was the place to be. Sometimes I dream about what it was like back then.
So, what happened to the place?
The same thing that happened to every other place. The Empire came in, and they set up the sector system, and, well, then soldiers came and ransacked the whole place. They took everything from the chandeliers to my great-grandmother's piano.
But if the place was closed down, how did they stay here that night?
Well, the hotel operated on and off for years, illegally. When my dad ran it, he actually got the place looking fairly respectable again.
So it was your dad who was here that night?
Oh, yes, it was.
What did he say about it?
It was his favorite bedtime story. He used to tell it to us all the time. By the time I was 5, I had it memorized.
Can you tell us?
Sure. Okay. It was a freezing cold night. One of those nights where the wind just whipped around every corner. People were coming from all over because, well, the Empire had ordered people to return back to the sector in which they were born. People had been coming to the inn for several hours, asking for a room, and Dad had been turning them away. Well then, up walked this couple, and they asked for a room. Well, before Dad could say, "Sorry, no room," he noticed that the girl was pregnant. Like, really, really pregnant. Through chattering teeth, the man explained that they had been looking for a place to stay all afternoon and had found none. Dad said that there was this look of desperation in his eyes. Like the kind of desperation that comes after you've just been rejected over and over. Well, my grandparents always taught my dad to help those less fortunate, so he knew he had to do something.
Did he move someone else out of their room?
No. My dad was compassionate, but he was still a businessman. Plus, if they moved the wrong person out, that person could go back and rat us out to the Empire officials.
Then what did he do?
Well, there was this old shed out back. It was a storage shed where Dad typically kept his tools. And it just so happened to be a place where 12 random animals would stay. So, Dad went out there and got an old lamp and a mattress and decided to make a room. It wasn't a proper room, but I mean, it was something. So by the time I got back to the hotel, though, the room was the least of his worries because she was going into heavy labor.
Didn't your father think to take him to the hospital?
Yeah, but then he thought it would just be better for business if he had a screaming pregnant lady giving birth all night.
Sorry.
So obviously the hospital was off the table. What was the problem?
The nearest hospital was in another sector. And the only way to get there was by an ambulance who would only give rides to Empire citizens. Between the journey across the city and the different checkpoints, we were scared that she would give birth in some random street corner in the freezing cold.
Did your dad deliver the baby?
No. Fortunately, there was a retired doctor staying at the inn that night. So they all went back down to the storage shed and hunkered down for several hours of labor. Dad mainly just tried to make small talk with the nervous husband.
Did he ever say what they talked about?
No, Dad asked the man if he was excited to meet his child, and the man just said he was nervous and wasn't sure if he could call the baby his.
Awkward.
Yeah, they mainly stuck to sports and weather after that.
Was the husband upset about the baby?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, Dad picked up that he was nervous, but Dad also picked up that there were also rumors going around about who the father of this child was, and no one could understand why he would stick with his wife. But Dad also picked up that the man was just nervous about whether he was able to raise this special child or not.
What happened next?
Well, after several hours, the doctor told the woman to push one more time, and then she let out this piercing yell. Well, then the next thing that Dad heard was crying. The baby was born. It was covered in all this cheesy stuff. It was messy and it was chaotic, but Dad said that he just had this strange peace in the midst of it.
What about Mary?
Oh, Mary was radiant. I mean, she was exhausted but beautiful. They cut the cord and cleaned the baby up, and handed it to her. Well, she was holding him and cried. She looked at him and kissed his little forehead, and you could hear her whisper, "Our little miracle." Dad said that he asked the man if they had picked a name, and Dad said he'll never forget the man's response. He said, "Jesus, for he's going to save us."
What an incredible night.
Oh, that was just the beginning of it. Then came the visitors.
Visitors?